Former South African President Jacob Zuma sentenced to 15 months in jail after being found guilty of contempt of court. Our rebel forces in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region reclaimed the capital Mekelle amid a government-declared ceasefire. Plus, businesses shut down in Eswatini's capital, Mbabane, as police clash with protesters. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. We begin in South Africa, where former President Jacob Zuma has been sentenced to 15 months by the highest court in the country. The jail sentence comes after the Constitutional Court found him guilty of contempt for defying its order to appear at an inquiry into corruption while he was president. Mr. Zuma's time in power, which ended in 2018, was dogged by graft allegations. Businessmen were accused of conspiring with politicians to influence the decision-making process. Right about now, let's take a listen to the court ruling read out by Constitutional Court Judge C.C. Kampepe.
This court, in Secretary of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into allegations of state capture. In the final analysis, the Constitutional Court makes the following order. 1. The application for direct access is granted. 2. The Helen Suzman Foundation is admitted as amicus curiae. 3. It is declared that Mr. Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma is guilty of the crime of contempt of court for failure to comply with the order made by this court in Secretary of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into allegations of state capture, corruption and fraud in the public sector, including organs of state, versus Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma. Mr. Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma is sentenced to undergo 15 months imprisonment. 5. Mr. Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma is ordered to submit himself to the South African Police at Nkandla Police Station or Johannesburg Central Police Station within 5 calendar days from the date of this order.
Our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, joins us now for more on this. Hello, Betty. I can't imagine what it has been like in the country today after this verdict. What has been the reaction, to this ruling handed down to Jacob Zuma? We know Mr. Zuma is quite the controversial figure.
Well, it's been a hectic news day. I can tell you the first few moments of that judgment, very carefully worded judgment. There was quiet, even in court, around the court, even in the media. Everyone was shocked. All sides were shocked. But a few moments later, all the reactions started coming. And of course, the usual suspects were on the sides that they're on. Those hailing triumph of the rule of law in the country, praising the Concord for the stance that it's taken, trying to tell the former president that nobody is against the law. Nobody is above the law. And you still have those like the MKMV, of course, and his children saying, look, they're being unfair to him. There are also analysts saying, how come, if the maximum sentence or penalty for defying the commission is 6 months, that he's being fined or he's being sentenced to 15 months in jail, although the commission had requested 2 years. And those saying, how come it doesn't count that he's saying he's not saying he's not appearing before the commission, but he doesn't want to appear before Justice Zondo, Deputy Chief Justice Zondo, who is the chairman of the commission. Doesn't it count that he's questioning the issue of fair hearing, the issue of his own justice regarding him? So those are the things that are still going on. He's not handed himself over. He's not handed himself over to the police yet, as directed by the Justice Kampepe. But we expect that to happen within the next 5 days. After which, if he fails, the 3 days after the 5 days, the police commissioner and the minister of police will have to ensure that he hands himself over. But it's a huge day. His son is saying, look, you have to kill me first to arrest him. But his daughter is saying, look, I've spoken to my father, he's in high spirits, and we will support him as he goes to hand himself over. Mixed reactions in the country. But it's shocking. It's been a shocking day.
I can imagine. For the next 5 days, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yes.
All right, continue.
Yes, and that's despite the fact that everybody expected that ruling of contempt of court, but maybe nobody expected the 15 months for him to actually go to serve time in jail.
Yeah, 15 months, that is more than a year. Well, what would be the impact, if any, on the ruling ANC party? We know he was, an integral part or an integral member of the party.
He still is. The ANC has briefed the media. They've talked about supporting the constitution, upholding the rule of law, and encouraging all their members to do the same. You recall that while this was playing out, several members or top members of the party were sent to Mr. Zuma to encourage the Tea Party sagas, people going over to Nkandla to have tea, to probably plead with him, including Julius Malema of the EFF, to plead with him to probably comply and attend the hearing at the commission. So these are some of the things, and the ANC is saying, we're studying the judgment. That's the official stance. We are consulting, and we'll have an NEC meeting. That's the National Executive Committee also at the weekend to discuss the latest developments, probably before they say anything further. But it's an election year. I hope the election holds, COVID permitting. People have been looking at the ANC and what they're doing regarding corruption in their midst. Still more colorful testimonies coming out at the Zondo Commission regarding ANC members. So it could work positively for them to see, okay, something is being done. Although that Zondo Commission wasn't supposed to send Zuma, he wasn't supposed to end up in jail for appearing at the Zondo Commission. But now his conduct, probably against the judiciary, is what is sending him to jail now, not exactly the outcome of the Zondo Commission. Remember, that commission is not yet done. It's just been extended by the authorities. So the ANC is trying to look right before the law, before the people, get the people's trust, but not exactly throwing their member away. But there's really nothing much they can do regarding this.
All right, then. Thank you. Our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia, thank you for those updates.
Thank you.
All right, about now, let's give you a background of what has happened, before now, and how, former President Jacob Zuma has been. Back in November 2020. Zuma walked out of the commission without the chairperson's permission after failing to have Justice Zondo recuse himself as the commission's presiding officer. Well, in December, Mr. Zuma indicates that he will not be participating in the proceedings at the Constitutional Court in an application brought by the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. However, in January 2021, the Constitutional Court rules that Mr. Zuma must appear before the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, but he failed to appear in February after being served the summons to appear. Then March, the State Capture Commission sought the Constitutional Court to seek Zuma's arrest, and here we are in June, Mr. Zuma being sentenced to 15 months for contempt of court. Well, moving on to other stories, but still in southern Africa, business owners in Eswatini's capital, Mbabane, have closed their premises as police clash with demonstrators. The media from neighboring South Africa reports that the army is in full control of Mbabane, and some people have been barred from accessing the central business district. A video of people running in the streets of the capital with cars speeding off while blaring their horns have been shared online, with some reports saying worried motorists have formed long queues at petrol stations. Demonstrations started over the weekend with people calling for King Mwasati to step down as part of democratic reforms, which will include free elections. Eswatini, formerly called Swaziland, is Africa's last absolute monarchy. Let's take you back to our major story for today. Former President of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, being sentenced to 15 months. We have legal practitioner joining us now, Idemudia Uriesi, joining us to discuss the legal implications of this ruling. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa. Now, this verdict is not even for the initial corruption he's on trial for. Yes, this is for contempt of court. You know, he not showing up for these hearings. No, I can hear you. I'm asking you, could this have any implication on the overall trial?
Hello. No, I didn't get that. I'm sorry, I lost you for a while.
All right, I was asking that this verdict, you know, it's not for the initial corruption he's on trial for. That's Mr. Zuma. What implications could this have on the overall trial? Because this sentence is for him, for his, you know, being in contempt of court.
Yeah, well, there's no implications at all from a legal perspective. You must realize there are two issues here. The one is the Commission of Inquiry, which he's been found in contempt of. The other is this corruption trial that dates back to, perhaps it could even be, I think, 2000. So it's if he's incarcerated, he will simply be taken by prison authorities to attend his trial every day and brought back. So from a purely legal, procedural, and even a substantive perspective, there are no implications at all.
Can one say this is a surprising blow dealt to the former president? We know since he's been in power, you know, he's been dogged by a lot of scandals. What does this say about the South African judicial system?
Yeah, well, I think it's a reaffirmation of the rule of law. You must remember that the Commission of Inquiry has tried for over 2 years to get Mr. Zuma to come and give evidence of what he knows. He has had a plethora of reasons why he shouldn't go. He went once and, you know, he bandied around accusations, scurrilous accusations, baseless. And then he wouldn't go back, and he had COVID as an excuse. He had going overseas for treatment. He had all kinds of excuses. In any event, I think the chairman of the commission eventually issued a subpoena, which he also defied. And based on that, an application was brought to the Concord. So the legal system has bent over backwards to actually accommodate Mr. Zuma. And I think any onlooker anyone who had even half-heartedly followed proceedings would have seen that he had this coming long ago. So it's not a surprise at all.
All right, then. Thank you so much, legal practitioner Idemudia Uriesi, for joining us.
Thank you.
Still to come on the program. We join communities in the Amazigh-speaking Berber people of Algeria to celebrate their music festival. Please join us again. Thank you for staying with us. Rebel forces in Ethiopia's northern Tigray region say they have retaken its capital, Mekelle, sparking street celebrations and forcing officials to flee. Residents reported scenes of joy with fireworks and thousands waving flags. The government, which took Mekelle in November after Tigrayan rebels rejected political reforms and captured army bases, has now called a humanitarian ceasefire in the region. The fighting has left thousands dead and has pushed 350,000 towards famine. More than 2 million people have also been displaced. There had been reports of renewed fighting between fighters of the Tigray's People's Liberation Front and government forces outside Mekelle, but a rapid response on Monday led to the unexpected recapture of the city by the rebels in what may be a possible turning point in the bitter conflict. Meanwhile, the UNHCR says it is extremely worried about the latest developments inside Tigray, while the WHO says the conditions inside the region are a recipe for larger due to displacement and crippled health services. Spokespersons for both agencies warned on Tuesday that there remains famine-like conditions and a potential for disease outbreaks despite a ceasefire call from the government. This comes as the United States, Ireland and the UK have called for an emergency UN Security Council public meeting over the conflict.
This is making it even more difficult for our staff to work and deliver humanitarian assistance. We call for calm and restraint and appeal to all parties to the conflict to abide by international law, to protect civilians, including people who have been displaced, and to ensure that humanitarian workers can continue to exercise their duties and reach as many people as they can, which are in need of vital assistance right now.
From our side at WHO, we are taking measures to strengthen the security and well-being of our staff, but at the same time, we are continuing to deliver activities where it is possible to do so. And these includes activities in IDP camps around surveillance and access to essential health care and increasing the number of mobile health clinics. With hospitals that are barely functioning, people being displaced, and the looming famine, the risk of communicable and vaccine-preventable diseases spreading due to the lack of food, clean water, safe shelter, and access to healthcare is very real. And all these factors combined are literally a recipe for larger epidemics.
Supporting African countries to prevent and counter threats posed by terrorist groups must be a global priority for us all. Now, that's according to Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who says the advances in Africa have been especially alarming.
Al-Qaeda and ISIL have continued to exploit social grievances and gender stereotypes to inspire lone actors and co-opt other groups. Their advances in Africa have been especially alarming. Supporting African countries to prevent and counter the threats posed by these groups must be a global priority for us all. More resources need to be marshaled towards addressing the grievances that terrorists exploit, standing up to hate speech and discrediting terrorist narratives. And victims and survivors have a key role to play. Youth should also be at the center of these efforts. Counterterrorism needs to rise to the challenges and opportunities of transformative technologies. COVID-19 has accelerated our dependence on cyberspace. We need to nurture technological innovation, but also to mitigate its growing risks. The spike in cyber attacks and cybercrime since the pandemic should be a wake-up call. Our roadmap for digital cooperation seeks to foster cyber trust, security and inclusion, while recognizing and protecting human rights in the digital domain.
Entertainment places in Zambia have been closed by the government as the government enforces new measures to prevent further spread of coronavirus. The Health Ministry had last week said that starting Monday, these spots would be opened only during weekends. Matthew Ngulube, the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Local Government, said on Monday that the authorities had reviewed that directive and noted non-compliance, hence the closing of all bars and casinos. The closure will take effect for 14 days, but during that time, the stores will be allowed to sell alcohol just on takeaway basis. Closed last week for 21 days to allow administrations to put in place preventive measures. The country is set to be in the third wave of COVID-19 and has recorded over 149,000 cases so far. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is calling on the Security Council and all countries to strongly support the protection of children in all ways at all times. He made this known while presenting his report on children and armed conflict. He says during 2020, almost 24,000 grave violations were committed against 19,300 children in the 21 situations covered by the report's mandate.
Call on the Security Council and all member states to strongly support the protection of children in all ways at all times. There is no place for children in conflict, and we must not allow conflict to trample on the rights of children.
For the children living through the 21 conflicts outlined in the report, the challenges of daily life under COVID-19 are magnified. School closures, increased risks of violence and abuse under lockdowns, mental health impacts, and being separated from their friends and peers. Negative coping mechanisms like child marriage and child labor, all against the backdrop of protracted conflicts and global socioeconomic crises that threatens to roll back decades of progress and increase the risk of recruitment and use of children.
Communities in northern Algerian city are celebrating World Music Day with a musical festival that's bringing people together in the Kabylie region east of Algiers. It's a bastion of Amazigh-speaking Berber culture. Take a look.
Young and emerging artists took to the streets of Bouada village in the Kabylie region in Algeria to perform in a festival marking World Music Day, celebrating Amazigh culture.
This was organized to bring people together, to share and introduce children to these traditions. I hope that this festival will please the foreigners who have come. We also hope that the village and its inhabitants will please you as well. Thank you.
Playing in different neighborhoods, young musicians from across the region got the chance to showcase their talent and perform to a huge audience, an opportunity they hardly get.
We held this music festival to discover young singers, to give them the chance to get to be known. They don't all get the chance to go on stage with musicians. We mainly rely on unknown young singers.
With women wearing traditional dresses and the community singing and dancing, the festival is also a way of introducing younger generations to their musical heritage and traditions.
We come to parties for pleasure, to express ourselves, to sing. We have no opportunity to shine on other stages. We come to the villages with pleasure and with respect. We hope that this village will continue these festivities and that they will be successful.
This is the first edition of the festival organized by local residents who are hoping to turn it into an international music festival one day.
That's it on the program for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.